Namaste. A very warm and a pleasant welcome to one and all present here. Today, we are going to deal with module number 4, which is Epic of Harmonies, musical references in Mahabharata. We all know there are two epics, itihasas, that is the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. Ramayana, as we all know, deals with the Rama and Sita as the main characters, and it also talks about dharma, the grihastha, the duties of a brahmachari, duties of a son towards his father, duties of lineages of kings towards their countrymen, etc. But whereas in Mahabharata, that's not the case. Whatever you want in your life is being secured, or you can get it from Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is just not an epic, but it is a legacy, it is a legend in its own way. Mahabharata has Sri Krishna as the main character, of whom there are 5 Pandavas and 100 Kauravas. So the entire story revolves around the same family, and in between these two families is the rivalry, and the outcome is at the Kurukshetra, they both fight in the war. And finally, the Pandavas win and establish dharma, the goodness, over the evil. So this is the story of Mahabharata in short. Sri Krishna advises, counsels, gives therapies to Arjuna in the Kurukshetra war. Here, today, in this module, we will be talking about different musical references in the Mahabharata, where, how, and when musical instruments, musical elements were used, were produced in different situations and contexts of Mahabharata will be dealt in this module. So friends, I hope you enjoy this video. We all know that there are 1 lakh verses in the Mahabharata. There are 18 parvas in the Mahabharata. 18 parvas are nothing but 18 chapters, and the entire Mahabharata deals with loyalty, righteousness, so called as dharma, truthfulness, and many other such qualities with which we deal with in our everyday lives. We find music to be an integral part of this great epic, the Mahabharata. We often find Krishna with a flute. Lord Sri Krishna with a flute symbolizes as the love, the compassion, the devotion that we have towards him and that he has towards his bhaktas. So music has been an integral part of this Mahabharata as we see. So friends, let us know how musical references are found in Mahabharata. Mahabharate Sangeetasya Mahatvam. Musical instruments, their symbolism in the Mahabharata. As you see, the Mahabharata is not only an epic narrative, but also a treasure trove of musical references that reflect the cultural practices of its time. The text incorporates musical elements, but explicitly and symbolically, often weaving them into its philosophical, ethical, and devotional discourses. So now we are going to see some of the examples of musical narratives in the Mahabharata with relevant references in Sanskrit. Gandharva tradition. We all know Gandhara Raj is the Shakuni, and he is from the present Afghanistan. Now, their tradition, the Gandhari tradition, is what is mentioned here. Gandhari is none other than Dhritarashtra's wife and Duryodhana's mother and Shakuni's sister. So she comes from Gandhara tradition, and Gandhara tradition is supposed to be a tradition with great musical fervor. See, the Mahabharata frequently mentions the Gandharvas, celestial musicians known for their expertise in singing and playing different musical instruments. Their music symbolizes divine harmony, peace, and is associated with aesthetic and spiritual aspects of life. So, Gayanti cha Mahatmano Gandharvaha Vadyakovidaha. The Gandharvas, skilled in playing musical instruments, sing melodies. Musical instruments played throughout Mahabharata. We can find different instances in the Mahabharata where different kind of musical instruments are played. Various instruments such as veena, mridanga, and dundhubi were found again and again in the texts of Mahabharata. So they have been an integral part of celebrations, ceremonies, festivals, etc. in the courtyards, and also specifically in the battles. Veena-vaditra nirghoshaihi shankabher yadikaihi saha. So these are the verses from Sabha Parva in the Mahabharata, which says, the sound of veena and other musical instruments along with conch and drums resounded loudly. As you can see, they are veena, drums and dundhubi here. Bhima and Dundubi as an integral part of musical reference. Bhima, as we all know, is the third brother in sequence amongst the Pandavas. Now, Bhima is just not a person who is well versed in music, but he was also good in Pakashastra. So, he was an able cook of those times. Now, let's see what he used to do. The story of Bhima defeating the demon Dundhubi connects music to power and valor. The Dundhubi drum, representing demon's remains, is symbolic of triumph. Bhimasenas tato gatva danavasya tadam tataha. Vanaparva of Mahabharata in these verses say that Bhimasena, having defeated the demon, caused a mighty sound like the Dundhubi drum. He was howling as if it was the instrument of Dundhubi which produced the sound from its drums. Samaveda and the devotional music. We have been again and again referring Samaveda in Upanishadic literature, Puranic literature, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, in various other texts. But let us know that Samaveda is the foundational base of each and every musical treatise, musical traditions, musical families. So we are ought to touch Samaveda in each and every module. The recitation of Samaveda hymns, often sung rather than spoken, highlights the importance of musical intonation in Vedic practices. The epic underscores how music serves as a medium for invoking divinity and maintaining the dharma here. It says, Samagayanakam tatra brahmananam cha kirtanam. These are the words from Anushasana Parva of Mahabharata, which says, there the recitation of Sama and the singing by Brahmans were heard. So these are some of the references in which we can understand that music has been an integral part of Mahabharata. Kunti's lament and musical metaphors. So Kunti is none other than the mother of all the 5 Pandavas. Kunti uses musical metaphors in her laments, like life's struggle to a discordant symphony. So her life has always been a melancholy in the entire story of Mahabharata. The poetic device conveys the emotional depth of her character. It says, Jeevitam me ganameva durgamam, swarakshinaha sampradatto yathartaha. My life resembles a challenging melody where the notes falter, and harmony is elusive. In deep pain, Kunti's rendition were those in those verses. Krishna's flute and devotional music. We all know that Lord Krishna is always found with his peacock feather and his bansuri in hand. So, the flute in his hand. It says, although Mahabharata focuses less on Krishna's flute compared to Bhagavat Purana. So, Bhagavat Purana has Krishna Charitra, his age-old stories right from his childhood, but Mahabharata concentrates on Krishna rather than his flute, and his divine persona as a musician and enchanter emerges in the scenes of devotion and the reverence. So it says, Vinena cha madhurena vadyena Krishno mano jahara. Krishna captivated minds with his gentle and melodious music. So these are the verses we find from Mahabharata. Musical rituals in Rajasuya Yajna. Rajasuya Yajna is one of the most largest yajna. During Yudhishthira's Rajasuya Yajna, music and dance played a very, very crucial role in the festivities while performing the sacrifice and showcasing the grandeur of the rules and regulations that were performed during this sacrifice. So, Nritya Gita Vidhanena Samprayukta Mahakriya. So, this is the verse from Sabha Parva of Mahabharata, which says, the great ritual was performed with arrangements of music and dance as an integral part of it. And we find music in Mahabharata is not just merely an ornamental, but serves as a metaphor, as a symbolic in nature of the cosmic order, Rita. And human emotions and spiritual evolution is also conveyed through the musical notes in the Mahabharata. Its references to Gandharvas, instruments, and rituals underscore musical's pivotal role in the entire Mahabharata. Also, these elements continue to inspire classical music even to this day in India. In Mahabharata, it contains rich musical and poetic imagery. Additional references highlight the role of music in ceremonies. As you can see on the screen, there are trumpets, there are different instruments that are very, very visible to us, which are highly emotive in nature, which forms a pathway to the dharma, and naturally they are often used instruments in the Mahabharata, as we can see on the screen. Here's an extended exploration. As we see, divine music in heaven, the Swarga, as we say. The epic frequently describes the heavenly realms, Swarga, as filled with music of divine beings like Apsaras and the Gandharvas. This reflects the belief that music is an integral part of this divine bliss. Tatra Gandharva Sanghanam Gitavaditranihi Swanaha. In the Swargarohana Parva of the Mahabharata, it says, these resounded the songs and music of the groups of Gandharvas in the heaven in the Swarga. Now, let us also see sage Narada as an avid musician. Narada, a celestial sage, a divine sage, and a master of Veena who carries a Veena along with him everywhere as a prominent figure in this epic. He is often described as wandering through realms, spreading wisdom, joy through his music. Whatever he talks sounded like music to others. So he is a working embodiment of, musician. So here we find a reference. Narado Bhagavan Devo Venuna Madhuram Jagau. The divine sage Narada sang melodiously with his Veena. The role of music in the battles. We all know Mahabharata's most important context was the Kurukshetra war. We can never forget Kurukshetra war in nature. So there are two parties and Arjuna is filled with a lot of confusions and Krishna answers his questions and, vanishes his ajnana and gives him the true knowledge of Atman and the Parabrahma. Now, what is the role of music? We all know the war starts with the sound of the conch. And once the conch is blown, they are supposed to start. And before the sunset, they have to stop the war. These were some of the conditions in the war. Let us see how music was an integral part of this Kurukshetra war in the great epic Mahabharata. Music is used to inspire warriors and create a sense of grandeur in the battles. Conches, drums, and other instruments play an integral role in rallying troops, igniting their effectiveness and signaling movements to hint each other. Panchajanyam Rishikesho Devadattam Dhananjaya. These are the verses from Mahabharata which says, Rishikesha, Lord Krishna himself, blew his conch in such a manner, and the conch's name is Panchajanya, and Arjuna blew the Devadatta. His instrument is called as Devadatta. Now, songs of lamentation, every day there was huge number of deaths in the Kurukshetra war, and the laments and the musical references in that is told here clearly. Characters in the Mahabharata often express grief and despair through the songs and poetic expressions, which are sometimes accompanied by musical instruments. Here is a verse which describes in Vanaparva of Mahabharata, which says, Kimnu nunam mritam geetam yaccha shochati parthivaha. Has the song of life ended as the king mourns in sorrow? Why? Because he was able to see lakhs and lakhs of people dying on the Kurukshetra war. This makes him feel very, very bad. Let us also see the nature and music. How nature is directly combined to music. The epic frequently compares the sounds of nature, the birds pecking, the animals' sound, the wind blow, and the musical instruments. These were all the integral part of the great epic Mahabharata. Birds, rivers, the wind sound to musical symphonies. These poetic descriptions highlight a connection between the music and the natural world. Kujadbhir nama shikhibihi, swarena madhurena cha. These are the verses from Vanaparva of Mahabharata which says, peacocks were cawing with sweet, melodious musical notes in them. We also find some musical reference in the Bhishma Parva, especially when the Bhishma is fallen with bed of arrows. Bhishma's final moments are accompanied with the hymns and chants sung by sages, the celestial beings, emphasizing the sanctity of music and spiritual transition. Bhishma is not a normal person. He is not a normal character in the Mahabharata. He is someone to be recognized and considered throughout the epic, and even to this day, people say that if you take a pledge, it should be like the character of Bhishma, as we say, it is Bhishma Pratigya. So, Rishayaha Saganaha Siddhaha Gayanti Paramam Sthavam. In the Anushasana Parva of the Mahabharata, the sages, along with the followers, sang the supreme hymns. This is in order to give respect to what Bhishma has been doing in the Kurukshetra war. The sound of Dharma. Music is often portrayed as an extension of Dharma, the cosmic order. Yudhishthira's kingdom is described as resonating with harmonious music, symbolizing a just and a prosperous rule. Dharma Rajye, in the Rajya of Dharma, Dharma here means Dharmaraj, who is Yudhishthir. Vanijo Gita Vatya Samakulah. These are the verses from Sabha Parva of Mahabharata, which says, in the reign of Dharma, Dharmaraja Yudhishthira, the merchants rejoiced with music and instruments. So you can see some of the instruments here. Music in Ashwamedha Yajna. We have already seen Rajasuya Yajna. Now we are heading back to Ashwamedha Yajna. During the Ashwamedha Yajna, the horse sacrifice, as we say, it's a very lengthy process in Mahabharata story actually when you read, but the music and chanting forms an essential part of this elaborate ritual, the sacrifice of Ashwamedha Yajna, symbolizing unification of the cosmos. Now, these verses represent them. Nritya ganaihi stutibhischa yajna sampurno abhavat. Ashwamedha Parva of Mahabharata says, the sacrifice was completed. It got a sanctity to itself with the dance, songs, and the hymns of praise. So music has always been an integral part of all the celestial ceremonies, bodies, festives, and whatnot, even in the battlefield. Musical expressions of love. In the narrative of Nala and Damayanti, which is also called as a great story of Abhigyana Shakuntalam. So in Abhigyana Shakuntalam, it's about Nala and Damayanti. Music and poetry are used to convey deep emotions of love, longing, and laughter. Swarasamyuktaya vacham navodgeetam sumadhuram. These are the verses from Mahabharata, which says, his words, like newly sung melodies, were sweet and full of emotions. The queen, looking at the king, talks about all these things. We also see hymns in the Bhagavad Gita, which also has music as its integral part. Bhagavad Gita itself is a form of musical and poetic version. The term Gita itself means a song, a Geetam, and its verses are designed to be recited with a specific rhythm and specific intonation in it. Shloka Shabdo Abhavat Kanthe Ganametaditi Smritam. So it says the verses were recited in a melodious tone, resembling like a song of Mahabharata. We also see the Mahabharata intertwines music and philosophy parallelly, nature and human emotion parallelly, presenting it as a universal language that bridges the mortal and the divine in it. Its depictions of music resonate deeply with Indian culture, highlighting our tradition and its enduring relevance. In the scattered references of the Mahabharata is hidden a glorious representation of the simple art of the ancient Indian music. The expressions of the mastermind are so powerful and realistic that they often transport the reader to the very situation described therein to be an eyewitness to themselves. So, overall, the musical elements in the Mahabharata enrich the epic, gives a flavored look to the Mahabharata, often layering of meanings that go beyond the written text, beyond our imagination, and highlighting the deep connections between art, culture, tradition, spirituality in ancient Indian thought. So, friends, we have been looking into the various musical references of Mahabharata today, and we have also learnt how various musical instruments were integral part of this great epic Mahabharata. We found different instruments during the warfield, during different sacrifices, during the courtyards, during the court sessions. We also found how nature has been an integral part of this music, the birds, the peacocks, the flute, and whatnot. We have got several references from Mahabharata today to learn that musical references were innumerable in the great epic Mahabharata. I hope you've enjoyed. Thank you so much.